So today, I'm going to talk to you about a story that I haven't really shared, even though I am a writer and I encourage other people to share their stories. And it's a story about a platform I started in 2007 called Circumspect. I started it while I was studying abroad in France, and the reason I did that was because I wanted to share my travels and my experiences and what I was learning in school. Now, when I tell people that I have been writing and creating digital content for 9 years, they often go, "What?" And then they ask me how I've stayed with it. And I can understand why that is the case. Because today, we live in what I like to call the now nation. We want everything immediately and preferably yesterday. And many of us like to say that, oh, we're working towards something, but in reality, very few of us actually want to take the time to work on those things. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you our story and why I think there's value and importance to starting small and taking one's time. So on the screen, you will see what is Circumspect's trajectory over the past 9 years. In effect, it looks as if everything was planned. But the reality is that when I started in 2007, I had no idea that I would be standing here today. And many of the instances that you see in here were also riddled with murkiness, also riddled with doubt, also riddled with sleepless nights, and perhaps more importantly, those moments when I really just thought I should hit the delete button on my blog. So now we're going to go back in time. Let's go back. It's 2007. I'm in Montpellier, France, and I'm studying abroad. And I'm learning a lot. And I decided to share all of this with my family and with my friends. I had initially been doing that on Facebook, but because many people weren't on Facebook at that time, it was still leaving the shores of the US and going global. A lot of my family and friends were not on Facebook. And I really wanted people to come on the journey with me because I did realize that a small girl like me from northern Ghana, what were the chances that I would be traveling across the world and what were the chances that I would be learning the things I was learning. So I wanted people to come along that journey with me. Now, what I used to share was my writings and what I was learning in class, and also commentary on things happening in Ghana, like skin bleaching, which is still ongoing, or the politics or politricks, as I like to call it. And I still do that today. But back then, writing on Circumspect was very personal. It was me trying to figure out the life around me trying to grow into myself and find out exactly what I was passionate about. And so the takeaways I have from that period is that it's important to use what you have. I might have started the blog and said, okay, you know what, I cannot write a blog every single week because I have a full course load to deal with. I could have said that, but instead I took writings and articles that I already had and I put them on the platform. The other thing is to honor your small beginnings and your first steps, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. And since I know this is a diverse audience, I'm not going to pick a side here, but when life gives you tomatoes, make jollof rice. Now, 2009 is the economic crisis in the US and in other parts of the world. And lucky me, I had just graduated from Mount Holyoke College with a degree in economics and French. Unfortunately, the jobs weren't forthcoming. So as I sifted through rejection letter after rejection letter and worked on campus, I had the time to actually explore Circumspect beyond myself. Now, what I did during this period was a lot of collaboration and also a lot of experimentation. So my very first blog was about how to blog. My very first video blog was about how to blog, and it was published in 2009. Now, if you notice on your Facebook timelines, video blogging is a thing now, and videos are all the rage. So what I realized from this period in time, because I gave myself the space to grow at my own pace, because I took the time over weekends to spend, I could spend 4 hours trying to figure out how to code a new template. Because I took the time to do all those things, I learned things and they became intuitive to me. The things that I learned and did at that time, well, I just didn't have the words to describe them, but they're the things that people say are the must-dos in the digital space today. It was also very important to collaborate with others because through collaboration, you get to learn not just at your own pace, but you get insights that might have taken you, let's say, 4 or 5 years from other people who have already passed that route. So collaboration is a big aspect of Circumspect. Now here you see a photo of myself and Chimamanda Adichie, and yes, I am a fan. And we had a discussion at one of her book readings in Washington, D.C., and I told her about this grand book I was going to write, down to who the characters were and how it would end. And she looked at me and she asked, so how does the story unfold? Now, we were talking about writing, but I think this relates to life as well, because for many of us, we have our lives mapped out. I'm going to do this at this age, I'm going to get that degree, I'm finally going to get this and that, and then I'm going to have my twins, and nobody can say anything about that. But the reality is that's not the way things pan out, because we each have a ticking clock, and none of us knows when it's going to end. And I know death is something that a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about, but the reality is it's there. And what that also means is that we have different timelines. And so something might happen for person A at this time and for person B at a totally different time. And it's important to realize that. Courage. So this is kind of still the phase that I'm kind of in. And I call it courage because by this point in time, I had to move away from the things that A, came naturally to me, and the things that B, I had learned about, and go into the unknown. And I'm still deciding if this was the great decision or not, but last year in October, I left a job with the African Development Bank to move back home to focus on Circumspect full-time. And many people will ask, why did you do that? You had a great job, you're traveling across the continent, which is true, I love travel. But the point is, every place that I went to, especially outside the continent, I noticed that there was a culture of documentation. A culture of documenting things that allowed people, both in policy spaces and in cultural spaces or just everyday life, to have a framework for where they would want to go and how they would want to improve. And even though we as Ghanaians and Africans do have a culture of storytelling and documentation, even though it tends to be more oral, we're not really doing that much. And so for me, it was a question of either stay and work in the bank and do the same thing over and over again, or try to capture some of these stories so that down the line, we have a frame of reference. Okay, so it's taken us 9 years to get to this point. And I would say it wasn't until the 6th year, that's in 2013, 2014, that I started having a sense of what Circumspect's mission would be. It took 6 years. And the mission is very simple. It's to provide quality information, to spur meaningful interaction, and to inspire creative action. And I'm going to give you 2 stories about how we're doing that. So in the first photo, you see a group of young Muslim girls holding a sign that says, "Thank you to Jemila and friends." Now, a friend of mine who works in education had told me about an organization called Achievers Ghana that works in Accra's slums to provide education to young girls. And they were facing a financing challenge because many of the families could not afford to send their children, who would soon be going into high school, to those schools that they actually got into because they were bright children. And this is something that resonated deeply with me because both my parents are educationists and I have had the privilege of having great education. And so what we decided to do, since it was around the holy month of Ramadan, we decided to launch a fundraiser. I had no idea who would be donating, but I figured, hey, let's do it. So we did an interview with Amina, the founder, and then we published it. And then at the end of the article, we encouraged people to donate or to provide whatever financing they could. In the space of 10 days, we raised almost $2,000. And this was not on Indiegogo. We did not go hard on social media. It was largely sharing it with family and friends, and them sharing it with family and friends, and especially Circumspect's readers who are all across the world. And so because of these people's contributions and buying into something that I started just chilling in France, we were able to finance the academic year with scholarships for 7 girls. And so that academic year, 7 girls got to go to school and not worry about what they were going to pay. And then let's go to the final slide, which is more recent. In, I think it was March of this year. This was the Sisterhood Matters campaign. So when I returned to Ghana, I actually live with 2 entrepreneurs. It's a house full of entrepreneurs, and we never see each other. But that's fine. And we were having a discussion, and they were telling me about how they were having a hard time connecting with people in their industry, especially women, because they didn't want to share industry secrets and give them a leg over them, or something of the sort. And as someone who is very avid on information sharing, it was mind-blowing to me. Even more so because I went to school at Mount Holyoke College, and I went to school at Wesley Girls. So I was used to a sisterhood whereby you're kind of in competition, but at the end of the day, you would rather your sister get the thing as opposed to someone entirely different. So we started this campaign and encouraged women and girls, not just in Ghana or Africa, but wherever they were, to share photos of women who had influenced them or supported them in one way or the other. But what many people didn't see after that campaign was we did a giveaway. And as part of the giveaway, we invited the giveaway winners for an intimate lunch at Cafe Kwai right here in Accra, and to just talk about life as a contemporary African woman. And that was a beautiful occasion, because for many of the women who came, we were about 20, this was the first time that they had ever encountered a positive experience with sisterhood. There were at least 3 or 4 girls who came up and said, I never thought that women coming together could be something this beautiful. For me, it was always about gossiping. So that's just another example of how we inspire people to do different things. Now, as you know, there are always highs and lows, and I'm very vocal about my lows as much as my highs. The highs tend to be more associated with Circumspect, and I give all of that to the readers, because Circumspect would not exist without our readers and supporters. And the lows, let's just say it's my humanity. So highs-wise, the recognition. And recognition comes down to the readers. The fact that they will read something and recognize themselves in something that I have written, or one of my team members or a guest contributor has written, or the fact that they will see something and identify with it. And on the lows, there's the issue of being misunderstood and how that affects your relationships. And I know there are many people in here who probably have a quirk or two and feel like nobody's gonna get it if I ever told them this is how I am or this is what I do. What I've learned over the past 9 years, thankfully I have a very supportive family. They're actually in the crowd somewhere, I haven't seen them yet. But what I've learned over the past 9 years is that it's okay to be misunderstood. It's okay to chart a different course that's a bit different from what other people think you should do. Why? Because you were chosen uniquely for that path. And probably the point is for you to get it so that you can help other people get it. So what are my big takeaways on time? First and foremost, do not detest your small beginnings. I think we have a culture of glorifying when people have made it up here. And we have a culture of glorifying when things are out in the open. But the reality is, the battle is always won when you have that moment just about to hit the delete button, and then you don't. So get into your small beginnings and accept them for what they are, because they're moments of magic, and it's upon that that all the great things you will do will come forth. And also take the time to figure out your brand. For those of you who are business women, don't just jump on social media because everybody's jumping on social media. And this is what I tell my clients. Because essentially, you need to figure out why you're on social media. You need to figure out why you do anything you do. And sometimes you won't know, and that's perfectly fine. It's part of the process. Now that I work on my own, I have to manage myself, and trust me, it's not the easiest thing to do. So what I do is I use a bunch of principles and tools to enable me use my time productively. I'm going to talk more about the principles because you can always Google the tools. Reverse engineering. Many people talk about planning your life. Reverse engineering means you look at yourself and say, here's where I want to be in X number of years. And then you work your way backwards. What would I have had to do over this period of time in order to get there? Now, what it offers, where just planning a 5-year plan doesn't necessarily give, is it gives you the flexibility to move things around and to change things. Another thing I highly recommend these days is taking a hiatus, taking time off, because we are always connected, especially if you work in the digital sphere like I do. Taking time off allows you to actually reflect on what you have done, to actually evaluate yourself, and then to make necessary decisions. Maybe you should pivot, maybe you should try something else. But if you're always on go, if you're part of the now nation, you never have the time to do that. And so it's about time. It's about time that we step out and we take the necessary steps to invest in ourselves. It's about time we women especially. And I'm going to share a final story here. When I started Circumspect 2009, I was in the US. I was in Europe, but most of my audience ended up being in the US. And they were largely female. But this year, when I look at my analytics, I have just a few more men than female, which boggles my mind. Because I ask myself, why aren't the women reading? Is it that the topics are too, I don't know, boring? But I'm a woman and I like economics and I like policy and I like music. And I'm sure there are other women like that out there. And then I realized that it wasn't that women were not reading. It's just that we're quiet. So we're silent readers. Even when it's something that affects us directly, I'll write about women's issues and I'll have men debating it and not a single woman saying anything about it. And it's important that we speak up. Because if we don't, the reality is we're not going to be visible. At the end of the day, when people are doing research, they're going to go online and they're going to find things that men have to say about women's issues. Meanwhile, we're the ones who are living it. So I highly encourage all of us, just as I have done, to finally take my own advice and share my story, to actually do the same. You don't have to be a writer. You don't have to, do videos. You can do it in your own little way. But it will help all of us, essentially. And finally, we need to support and collaborate with each other, especially we women. The men have the boys' club. What do the women have? And why is that the case? Because when you sit in any room, the likelihood of someone identifying with you, they're most likely going to be another woman or a girl. So thank you for your time and for listening. And for those of you who have been readers, thank you for your support.